Hello Art One. Today I'm going to show you how to do your sketch for your oh so delicious pop art dessert drawing. I have my favorite dessert right here, a cupcake from one of my favorite bakeries, Sweet 27 here in Baltimore. And I'm going to show you guys two ways to draw it, which you can do it free drawing, which is hard because you have to look at the cupcake and not eat it, but you can look at it from any angle and place it how you want and sketch it out in your sketchbook. Or you can take a picture of it and print it out, and I'll show you guys how to grid it and do the grid drawing that we've been doing all year. So the supplies you're going to need for this project is one, your favorite dessert. If that's your favorite treat, it could be candy, it could be cookies, it can be pie, whatever your favorite sweet treat is. You're going to need a marker and a pencil, a ruler if you're going to go with the grid drawing, your sketchbook, and if you have it possible, you're going to need your phone to take a picture of your sweet treat, as well as maybe a printer to print it out if you choose to do the grid drawing and not the freestyle drawing. Alright, so stay tuned guys. The first step I'm going to show you is the grid, so stay tuned. The grid drawing technique is going to be pretty much the same thing we've been doing all year when I showed you guys how to do a grid drawing. You're going to take your printout and you're going to make it into 1 inch by 1 inch squares. Now this is an 8 by 10 sheet of paper. If you can get your printer to fill the whole page of your photo, it's going to be a lot easier than smaller. In order for me to see my lines, I'm going to use a marker, but you guys can use whatever you have around the house to make your grid. If you can see the pencil, go with that. So marking off 1 inches, both vertically and horizontally. So I chose this bird's eye view for my grid drawing because I thought it was a really interesting angle. And for this project, what that's going to happen is I'm going to end up using oil pastels and watercolors, but you guys are free to use whatever you have. This is really fun with watercolors and oil pastels because the colors are going to be very bright. They're very rich, like a lot of the pop artists are all about color, making things come out and look kind of colorful and bright like an advertisement. When you're doing the gridding, just make sure that you guys are making sure that it looks like a square and not a rectangle. If you make one page a square, 1 inch by 1 inch, and the other one's a little more rectangular, it's going to throw out your proportions when you get drawing your picture. Now, if you don't have a printout and you still want to do the grid, you can try to do a grid on your devices, like on your phone. You could try to put an editing thing where you put the grid on. You might have to find an app for that. Everybody's phone's a little different, but you can play around with it and see what works for you. If you do have a printer, it doesn't need to be in color. Black and white is completely fine, as you see here, because I have the actual cupcake. So I'm going to use the colors from my cupcake in order to make my painting part. But for the sketch, I'm just worried about the values and the contour lines of it. Alright, so I'm almost done here. So I'll be right back in a second with it completely gridded out on my sketchbook and on my piece of paper. So when you get to your sketchbook, now you have two options. If I want to make this more enlarged and fill the paper up, I'm going to make my sketchbook have 1.5 inch blocks compared to the 1 inch here. So I do want to have this a little bit bigger than my actual picture here. So I'm going to do 1.5 inches just to enlarge it a little bit. If you want to keep it exactly the size it is here, then you just keep the 1 inch on your sketchbook too. So stay tuned. Okay, so I have my 1 inch squares done on my original picture, and I'm making 1.5 because I just want a little bit of an enlargement so it looks a little bigger on my paper. And it's actually going to go off the paper, which I think is kind of cool. If you don't want it to be enlarged or fall off the paper, you're going to make 1 inch squares by 1 inch, okay? So I just need to go the other way here, so I have 1.5 inch. All right, so now that I have my grid ready to go, I'm going to hold it this way so I can draw the cupcake. All right, so for me to get the best layout possible, I like to number my squares. So I'm going to put right here, I'm going to only do this section right in here so it's as close as possible. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 going across there. Perfect. So that's where my cupcake's going to run off a little bit. Going down, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 1, whoops, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. So it's going to pretty much hit the edges. So now looking at how my grid is laid out, I'm going to follow exactly what is in each grid. So for example, at 1, 1, I have nothing, but at 2, 1, I have a little bit of this shape right there, and then it goes up and over to here, and then it goes over here, and it starts, I'm going to start drawing in the shape of the shadow, because what I liked about this one is that I felt like the shadow for this drawing was just going to be as important as the cupcake itself, because I wanted to make it really bright colors and make it stand out. So you're going to follow this guide of making a grid of your drawing, and I'll come back and I'll show you what my progress is, following what you see in each square. For this demo, you can do a freestyle drawing too, and I'm going to show you how to do a freestyle. So you have to have your actual object, and it's much like what we did with our still lifes in class, where we just looked at it and drew. So you need to have it placed in a position that you're interested in drawing in. So I like this position here because I want to get it to look like I'm looking at it from a child's perspective, or like a little bug. So I'm going to have it propped up and I'm going to start drawing it. So you're just going to look at it and draw it how you see fit. So I want to make this really big and go off the page. And then just do a rough drawing of what you see. So this is really enlarging it. Very big. And you can, just get the rough gist of the impression of your sweet treat. If it's a candy wrapper, you want to make sure you try to get the many details of your wrapper, or the little parts of the candies if you have a candy. If it's a pie, it's going to be a very organic form like this cupcake. So it's going to be hard to get like all the little things, but just let your mind relax and just think about it as little organic lines and shapes. Don't forget that shadow. It's very important, just as much as the other details. So then I'm just going to get the little candies in here, and then I'm ready to rock and roll with the color part. So free drawing is nice because it just lets your mind wander, and it lets you just kind of go with the flow with what you come up with, knowing that it may not be completely perfect, but it's detailed with the little the main points of the subject. So I'm gonna put some candies in here. Okay, I'm not worried about any of the shadowing or anything. I'll add those in later. But you get the point. So I'm going to keep adding in my little candies, and I'll come back and we'll do the next step, which will be adding color to it. So after this step, look for my next video, and we're going to start adding color. So get as detailed as possible. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to get the lines of the cupcake paper and try to get a little bit of your gist of the gesture of the dessert you're drawing. Knowing that, you know, some things may be a little imperfect, but that's cool. That's part of the process for this one. And then what we're going to do is we'll come back and with these drawings after we look at them in class, and we're going to start adding color to them. You might also, when you're done, lightly erase a little bit so it doesn't show up too much. So there's two ways you can do this. There's freestyle, which is what I'm starting on here, and there's also the grid. So you can kind of see I'm getting the idea of the cupcake a little bit from that perspective. Alright, so you guys saw in this video how to make your oh so delicious treat, either by free drawing it or by using the grid. So hopefully you guys came up with your pop art dessert sketch. You can see this is my cupcake right here. Kind of had a little more focus on the lines and the paper. I'm curious to see how your tree came out. Make them big and large. And the best part is, once you get done with your drawing, you get to enjoy it. So, now after all the hard work, enjoy your favorite treat, and we will get back together when you are ready for the coloring. So, before you bite into this, make sure you take a picture of it. Because you'll need it for the color palette. Enjoy!